Hi, John. Thanks so much for joining us on Zoom. How are you, and how's everything at Bally Lynch?
Hi, Elena. I'm great, thank you. And everyone at Bally Lynch is in good form and good health, thankfully, as well.
Brilliant. Have you had many foals yet?
We've had close to 50.
Oh, wow, that's fantastic.
So, although it's been a challenging year weather-wise, I think both the mares and the foalings are well on target.
Brilliant. Well, it's also been a very good start to the year for Make Believe. It must be quite a nice accolade to have a stallion in the shed that is the sire of the winner of the world's richest horse race.
It absolutely is. It was a great day for us, and everyone was so happy to see it happen. And I think, when I reflect on it, I think it was an incredible performance, really, because he's a horse who was prepared in the depths of winter in Newmarket, brilliantly prepared, I should say, by his trainer, John Gosden, to compete in a race of this caliber without a prep race and being trained through the winter. It was an exceptional performance by both horse and trainer to go to a race of this caliber in Saudi without prep, trained through the winter. I would say brilliantly trained by John Gosden and his team. And I think, it reflects really well because he was taking on top caliber performers from the States on the surface that they would be probably more accustomed to. And, they had the advantage of maybe a prep run and training in warmer climates. So I think all in all, it was an exceptional performance.
Definitely. We'll talk a little bit about Mishriff a little bit more later on, but just to bring it back to Make Believe, I mean, I was kind of going through his pedigree again and looking back on his race performance, and it kind of really was a no-brainer that he was probably going to do quite well as a stallion, don't you think?
Well, that's what we thought. It's a question of making sure that everybody else thinks the same as us. But he was a horse with a very good race record, plenty of speed. I have to say I was very impressed with his win in the Poule d'Essai, where he beat two very good horses in New Bay and Highland Reel. And, he then went on to break the track record in Longchamp for the Prix de la Forêt. And that track record had been set by another stallion of ours, Dream Ahead, when he beat Goldie Cova in a fantastic finish. So for Make Believe to win it comfortably and still break that track record, well, it showed that he had a lot of talent.
Definitely, and the pedigree is there as well. Invincible Spirit and Kodiak are in the pedigree along the line, and Prince Faisal has had such a, he's so involved with that family, and now he's got the son of one of his great race horses, and it's all quite poignant, I think.
Yeah, it's pretty appropriate, I think. Prince Faisal has been developing that Rafa family for a number of years, and obviously he bred both Kodiak and Invincible Spirit, two exceptionally good sires from that family. And he's been nurturing it, and he sent Contradict the Dam to, Make Believe, who's one of his favorite racehorses. So it was highly appropriate that he should breed his first really top-class horse. He had, I think, 5 foals or 6 foals from his first crop, and he had, from that very small number of foals, he's had both Mishriff, who's 131 rated, and Tammany, another stakes winner, a very good horse, was rated 115. So I think, he's had a great strike rate from those small numbers. And thankfully, Prince Faisal is continuing to support the horse. And this year, he'll be sending him his biggest number of mares yet.
Yes, definitely. I think we spoke to Ted Vought a little earlier in the week in the publication, and we saw some of the mares that he's sending. So that's really exciting. But you mentioned another one of Make Believe's really nice performers, and he's had some really nice horses. I think Rose of Kildare was probably one of my favorites because of the story of her and how tenacious she was. But can you maybe just sum up, some of the really nice horses that he has had from his, he's still only, I think this is the 6th book of mares that he's going to cover this year, if I'm correct.
Yeah, well, the thing to remember is that Mishriff comes from his very first crop, and so do Tammany, and as you mentioned, Rose of Kildare, who's a very, very admirable filly, won 2 group races as a 2-year-old, and then trained on to win 2 group races as a 3-year-old. And thankfully, she stays in training. She's been bought by Qatar Bloodstock, and she stays in training this year. So we look forward to seeing her again this year. And he also has a very, very good filly trained by Roger Varian called Believe in Love, who's one of the most progressive 3-year-olds in England last year. She stays in training, and we expect lots from her as well this year. He also sired the champion 2-year-old filly in Germany in that first crop. So that was an exceptional crop. And he's backing it up with some very nice 2-year-olds from last year, including one of Prince Faisal's, also trained by John Gosling, called Third Kingdom. Very impressive winner of a maiden, could go on to be a very nice horse. And Roger Varian also trains a really nice 2-year-old who won at Newmarket by him. And, so there'll be plenty of nice horses come out from that crop also.
Definitely. And just we will talk about Mishriff a little bit more in detail now, because I remember like looking back on last year, and I remember when he won the listed at Newmarket, I just thought, oh, this horse is a little bit special now. And he has progressed, and I mean, he could be set for really big things this year. Looking at his career, how would you sum it up so far?
I think I would go back another year further to his 2-year-old career, because when he won his maiden, I think it was at Nottingham, he was so impressive. He won the maiden, literally pulling up by 10 lengths. And at that point, I think we really recognised what a good horse he was. And we fully expected him to turn out to be an even better 3-year-old, which he did do. And I think the first time that he really impressed me as a 3-year-old was before that win at Newmarket. He ran second in the Saudi Derby on his first start on dirt, and over a mile he missed the break, but he showed the courage that he has. He faced the kickback, he chased a very, very good Japanese horse and finished really strongly to finish second. So we were pretty sure here's a different horse. He's an exceptional horse. We certainly saw the potential there that day, and we saw the kind of grit and determination that he has, and that courage, that will to win, which I love in a racehorse.
I mean, he obviously didn't miss the break this year in the Saudi Cup. How would you sum up the race? I mean, did you think it was always kind of in the bags after he jumped so well? Did you think, oh yeah, he's going to do it this year?
No, certainly I thought it was a help. He's more experienced now than he was the previous years, so he did jump better. But he also, I think, very importantly, showed loads of early pace. So he was able to track the strong pace which had been set by the American horses, who were alternating on the lead. But he was right there in their slipstream without any difficulty. So he has lots of pace as well. And I was fairly confident that he would at least get that trip. He's won over 1.25 miles, so he was going to stay the 9 furlongs anyhow. And once he got within striking distance, I was pretty, without being overconfident, I was fairly confident that he would get there get to the front, because he does try very hard, and you expect him to come out on top in the photo finish.
Definitely. And just to bring it back to Make Believe, how is his book looking for this year? I'd imagine you've probably had a few calls after the weekend.
Well, we've had plenty of calls even before the weekend. This will be the strongest book that he covers. And it's, certainly there have been some more calls since the weekend, but the basis was already laid for it. This will be very much the strongest book that he covered. And, very, pleasingly, both the Dams of Mishriff and Believe in Love are coming back to him. So, people are going back to the scene of the crime, which is nice to see.
Definitely. And John, have you kind of noticed any nicks that particularly work well with him, or is there, a physical type of mare that suits him a little bit better?
Well, I mean, it's still early days from working out nicks, but it does seem fairly obvious that he can go well with the Sadler's Wells line, because both Tammany, who's out of the Sadler's Wells mare herself, and Rose of Kildare, who's a granddaughter of Galileo. And I think this is, a very promising thing. He's an outcross for all those Danzig lines and Sadler's Wells lines, and that's a really important thing. And I think he's a true son of the Dubawi line, and I think that's very important. And I think it will be a big help to him going forward in the future, because once people recognise that, he will get more of those type of mares. There's another exciting horse in the roster who's got exciting news this year in his first foals, and that's Volgeist. Have you had any reports on how those foals are going so far? You probably don't have too many on the ground, but just yet, because it's so early in the season. But have you had any positive reports? No, we've got quite a number on the ground, and the reports are excellent. And he's been very well supported. As you know, he was raced like Lope de Vega by Gertrude Ammerland and Dietrich von Bottischer, and he combined with Nuisance Park to breed Valgeist, and they're both supporting him well. And they both got some very nice foals, but we've got some really nice foals on the ground here at Bally Lynch, including one of our own out of a mare called Fort Del Oro, who was a champion sprint filly for us. She's a daughter of Lope de Vega, and her colt I would call exceptional.
Very good. I think I've seen a photo of him, and yeah, I think he's quite nice. I saw another foal in France on social media, and I just thought, okay, he's a bit special, isn't he? They seem to be That's quite right. strong and have that nice walk as well.
They do. Our own foal has a really good walk, and I saw that foal that you mentioned at Aradu Tene on social media also. And yeah, he's got a really nice walk, and I think he's stamping them like that. He's a very elegant horse himself with a lot of quality, and obviously he's actually that highest rated horse we have on the roster here, so he's entitled to get very good mares, and you'd expect good foals from him. But what we see so far, we're really pleased with.
Definitely, and I was just going to ask you there about the quality of mare that he's getting, and you mentioned there Gustav Ammerland and New Cells, and that must give confidence, the fact that you've got these good breeders, not just in Valgeist, but you have these breeders that are in all of your stallions, through the syndication of the stallions. It must be a huge help kind of when you have a new stallion starting, and they tend to dip in their second and third book. There's always that thing, but going forward, I think his books will always be quite strong, will they?
Yes, I mean, I think that's our model really follows that line where we do syndicate the horses, and we've, with all the horses that we stand here, the original racing owner has stayed involved. And I think that's extremely important, because the person who has great, success with a horse is going to have a vested interest in them doing well as a stallion. So it's great when they stay involved. So Ammerland have stayed involved in both Lope de Vega and Valgeist, and all the other stallions that we stand. Prince Faisal stayed involved in Make Believe and has been very influential in his success. And Ammerland were very successful, important in the success of Lope de Vega. And even we can see it with Fascinating Rock, where Maurice Regan, through Newtown Anor, has bred his very first stakes winner, who looks a very impressive horse in the United States. So I think that model has worked well for us. It does, as you quite rightly say, mean that you get support after the first season, which is a big challenge now in the stallion business. But it's our way of dealing with that issue, and so far it has worked extremely well for us.
Definitely. And how has Valgeist let down? I saw him obviously when he first retired, and I think I said to you, God, that horse is going to let down into a beautiful stallion. So can you sum up how he's looking for us?
Yeah, well, when you saw him, he had just come from winning the Prix de l'Arc, and he was pretty fit. And he's let down. He's a very nice stallion to deal with, very fertile, easy to work with. As you say, lovely sound limbs on him, and he's been able to let down well. It's been no problem to him to convert from being a racehorse into a stallion. He does it extremely well, and we're very proud of what he is.
Very good. And John, I just before I let you go, I do kind of want to talk to you about the whole debacle that is Brexit, and it's quite topical at the moment with mare owners trying to get mares across the borders and things like that. I mean, how are you kind of finding it? Do you think it's getting a bit easier now that we kind of understand the paperwork that's involved a little bit more? Like how's it going your end?
Yeah, well, Brexit is a challenge. We first of all have to accept that it's a political reality. It's the result of a democratic vote. So we all need to deal with the reality that is there. Certainly it is more challenging because, obviously when you've spent the last 20 or 30 years as part of a tripartite agreement between Ireland, the UK and France, something which made the transport of horses between those countries very seamless and very simple. Now we have a situation where one of those three countries is no longer a member of that agreement. There is a bipartite agreement between Ireland and France, but the tripartite agreement went with the ending of the transition period. So it is a challenge. I think people are up for doing the best they can to work it. The bloodstock industry is a very resilient, and I think it reacts really well to the challenges that are put in front of it. This is a challenge. I think the industry is dealing with it as well as it can. It is, quite difficult in the sense that now there are, customs realities and there are phytosanitary checks, etc., etc. But my feeling is that people will work out how best to achieve safe transits between those countries.
Definitely. And I mean, you have such an exciting roster there at Bally Lynch anyway, so I'm not sure you'll be moving many mares, because why would you when you've got the likes of Lope de Bacon and Make Believe? But for you personally at Bally Lynch, had you kind of decided early on that you may, not use stallions in England, or had you kind of put contingency plans in place before January 1st?
No, we still will try to use the stallions that suit the mares best. So wherever they're located, we will still try to use them. It is a big challenge in the sense that, VAT lodgements mean that it's much more expensive to use a stallion in the UK in terms of cash flow. But that's one of the challenges. If you believe it's the right thing to do, you probably still do it. But it does mean that you have to lodge money until the mare comes back. And that's obviously not going to suit everybody. And it will be a bigger challenge for the commercial breeder who is being asked to put money up at a time when there isn't much money coming in. So it's certainly a challenge, and I hope it works out for everybody. But I'm not sure if that part of it was well thought out before it all happened.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a lot of people regretting the Brexit decision, but there we go.
That's the nature of the game. There'll be people who are delighted with it as well. So we'll have to see which group comes out as being the wisest.
Definitely. Well, John, thank you so much for taking the time out to chat to us, and congratulations again to Make Believe and to all the team there. And I hope the rest of the breeding season goes well for you all.
Thank you, Elena. It's been a pleasure.